What's good with it in the hood with it? Welcome back to the collective clips where you already know. Tas, tas, tas. We get it in. But before we get it in, let's get this intro in. Welcome back to the channel. And if you haven't already hit the like and subscribe button, go ahead and do that. Put your notifications on all so that way you're directing the direction of the dope content that the gun stays kicking. And I appreciate your support on this channel. I'm very humbled by it. Mothers to monsters, mothers or monsters, right? When does a mother transition into a monster? Well, when does she lose that title of being a mother? When her name is Rebecca Haro or Pearl Fernandez. Now, if you guys don't recall the case with Pearl Fernandez and her boyfriend Haro, you remember that was a very big case with baby Gabriel. And I make it a point every year to do a video concerning baby Gabriel because I will never, ever let his name go. I will never, ever let his legacy and what that baby brought into this world was a beautiful smile. I will never let it go. Okay, we need to carry on these babies' names. We need to recognize the trash and the monsters that were around them, and hopefully, just hopefully prevent other people from, it makes me sick to think of what these people did to these kids, right? But we need to prevent these monsters, man, from inflicting this cruel and unusual. We just need to stop them from what they do to these children, right? It's just vicious. Anyways, right? Pearl Fernandez was convicted and given a life sentence. Her boyfriend, who inflicted so much fucking punishment and pain on baby Gabriel, was given the death penalty. Since there is no death penalty in California, he is now on a SNY yard in Corcoran State Prison, right? Whereas Pearl Fernandez is in Valley State Prison for women, being housed in a segregated housing unit because she's got into some trouble. Now, with all this Jake and Rebecca Haro mess going on, and we all know by now, man, Jake has already confessed, not only to the officers, but also to another inmate, right, who was put there as a decoy. He's basically spilled the beans. Rebecca Haro is keeping her muzzle on lock. She seems at this point just a little bit more stern in her belief that she is innocent, right? We all know that is not true because women can be controlled by men. Just like Pearl Fernandez was controlled by a man, so was Rebecca Haro, right? Now, that doesn't mean that they have an excuse for this. That doesn't mean because they're beaten and battered and they're battered women and their emotions are running high and these women have no self-esteem or low self-esteem, doesn't mean that they can get away with harming their own children. But for some reason, they think they can. They'll do anything for a long piece of pipa. They'll do anything for a glizzy. These women are glizzy women. Women that care more about the man and what the man wants. And if the man wants the children out the way, if the man wants it quiet in the house, if the man wants his food served hot, if the man wants his fucking clothes folded, they're willing to do that. Now, I understand in a marriage or when you're boyfriend and girlfriend, you want to do things to make your spouse happy, your other side happy. The little things count, bringing women flowers and candy and taking them out places and, good sex in the bedroom and all that. All these things make a relationship better. But when there's children involved, you have to make sacrifices. Okay, if you get with a woman that has children, that is a package deal. You have to make sacrifices. Maybe you guys can't go out like you thought you were going to go out to Red Lobster because now you got to buy that children's plate. And that motherfucker might be too expensive. So guess what? It's Hamburger Helper. You may go. And that's cool. I've been with women that had children and I treat them good just like if they were my own children, because if I want the pussy from the woman, then I'm going to treat the baby that came out of that very well. Okay? Not all men think the same way. There are some men that are very narcissistic, that don't like the crying at night, that don't want to deal with changing the diapers, or in Jake's fucking words, the diaper. There's a lot of men that want to control that woman, whether it be by abuse, mentally or physically. When that happens in a household around children, man, everybody is tainted. Imagine when your voice raises and you're screaming at the top of your lungs, how scared that child is. I hate to imagine it, but it's the facts and the truth. Now, Rebecca Haro is going through a case right now where her husband and her unalived their child. That's a fact. Okay? That's a fact. Jake has already admitted it. Now, is he trying to point fingers and misdirect and blame Rebecca? Absolutely. He's done it before and he'll continue to do it if given the chance. This is a man that should have never been around the kids after he did what he did to his daughter, but the system fucked up. The system failed that kid, just like Gabriel Fernandez. The system failed him. The Child Protective Services seen him beaten and battered at school. They seen him and questioned the mom on several occasions, but never removed him from the home. And he was killed violently by the stepfather, and Pearl participated. Pearl covered for him. Pearl knew what he was doing to her son and let him continue to do it because she wanted that man in her life. Now, you ask yourself, where's the other parent? Where was the father of Gabriel while this was happening? While he was incarcerated, is he to blame? Not for the abuse, but for not being in that child's life and recognizing what his girl, his ex, his baby mama, the type of men she had around her kid, right? Yes, everybody's at fault. The system, the biological father, definitely the fucking tirada mother, and her boyfriend who's a monster who did this to Gabriel. Now, with Jake and Rebecca, it's a whole different story. Poor Emmanuel didn't have nobody to look out for his best interest. Not Jake's sister. My brother won't do that. Shut up, tirada, piruja. Didn't have the grandmother. I've never seen the baby. I've been there 1,000 times, but he wasn't vaccinated, right? Stop it. Where were the fucking adults in this situation to help? I understand CPS was not involved. The system was not involved because Rebecca and Jake Haro were very clever. They were very explosive. They were clever enough to keep that baby about the system because there was no birth certificate, because there was no medical records, because there was no shot records. This kid did not exist on paper. Emmanuel only existed in a met up house with a fat mom who never looked like the way she was supposed to look, and a nerd ass dad that sat there all day doing welfare fraud, eating fucking Takis and playing Roblox. That's it. That child went through abuse after abuse after abuse. Look, abuse starts in the household. And just because you don't hit your child, if you don't not provide your child shots, if you do not provide your child's proper nutrition, if you do not clothe them right, if you're letting your kid run around fucking outside with no shoes on, that's a form of abuse, just to let you know, right? Now, what's going to happen with Rebecca? Because she will be convicted on this case. Even though Jake is now confessing. Okay, let me explain something to you. Dubs is going to do an exclusive, extensive video on this, man. So I want you guys to tap into his video that he does because he's got all the 411 and the info on this thing. I'll say this. A decoy was sent into the county jail under what is called the Perkins rule, right? And it's an operation utilized where you take a decoy, a fake inmate, whether it be a cop or even a real life inmate that's a CI and works for the police, and they secretly record or they have conversations with someone that's under investigation. This tactic was utilized on Jake Haro, where he confessed that he actually rolled over and they all say that. Don't they all say that? I rolled over and killed the baby, man. That's what happened. And then he threw Emmanuel in the trash. How can you throw your baby in the trash? If you rolled over and it was accidental, you call 911, you resuscitate the baby or not, right? And you explain the situation. Best believe the coroners, the medical field, the investigators will be able to find out if the baby, died because he could not breathe. We know that's not true. We know that this man, just like he did his first daughter, beat his child. That's straight up what it is, right? But anyways, that's his story. He's trying to tell it that way. They will utilize the fact that he is saying that the baby is dead to go on from there. According to him, the baby's in the trash, so the baby could be in the landfill somewhere. It's crazy, right? The story just keeps twisting and turning. Now, for people that are saying they can't utilize this information that they've gained via this informant, you're totally wrong. This is something that's been going on in the state of California and other states for years, and it's been utilized in numerous cases, and best believe it will be utilized in this one because it is a confession by Jake. Regardless if he knew he was being audio recorded or not, it is still an admission of guilt, and it gives them enough for circumstantial evidence and to go on that. Now, back to Rebecca, her muzzle's on lock. Obviously, she doesn't know what's going on. I wonder if they're going to utilize this same tactic for her. Maybe so. You know, she could be getting a celly or have a celly right now that looks like some big old fat strung out chick, right? That's really just an officer that's just fat and strung out. We don't know. But one thing we do know for sure is these people are as guilty as sin, just like Pearl Fernandez and Haro were as guilty as sin with baby Gabriel. Okay? Now, let me explain to you. I had an aunt, rest in peace, that did a lot of time in Chowchilla prison before they converted it into a men's facility. She did time in Valley State Prison for women. She was all throughout the state of California with what few facilities they have for women. Okay, one thing about the women while incarcerated, they don't play the gangs, the North, the South. You do have some chicks that are from barrios, from LA or from San Jose, and they might have a little chip on their shoulder towards the other side, but that shit is not what happens. Women are emotional creatures, and most of the fights that happen in prison is over in a woman's facility is over property or girlfriends or relationships. Because one thing about a woman being an emotional creature, they like to be involved in a relationship. So there are some that go gay for the state. They have a girlfriend, so there's a lot of fights over that. This is what my aunt told me. And then, of course, the common things in prison like drugs, debt, phone calls, things that could spark any type of conversation that can turn bad. My aunt was there with Pearl Fernandez when she was first locked up. When people found out who she was, it wasn't like they were waiting for her, but when they found out who she was, she had a very, very rough and hard time. So bad that she actually was working in the kitchen. She was there for a few months. There was whispers they wanted to move on her. Women will get off on you just like men will in prison. Maybe not with a whole bunch of knives, but they will still do their due diligence and handle their business. And because of the case and because of all, and I mean, it was a sickening case with Gabriel. If you haven't seen it, they did a Netflix special on it. I cannot watch it. I watched it once. I've never watched it again. The horrors that this child went through. And he was just a loving child, all because the stepfather thought that he was gay, right? I don't care if I had a kid and she turned out that way. That's you got to let the kids be what they are, right? And that's just it. You love them because they're your children, no matter what they do or who they are. Let them be them. And that's all I'll say about that. That's controversial, but that was the stepfather, Isaro. That was his excuse to put this kid through all the torturous things that he did, and it was sickening. It involved BB guns and cages and locked boxes and closets and just, I mean, you see the picture on the thumbnail. I can't believe CPS did not see that and immediately rushed to go save this child. This child needed help. He always kept a smile on his face. That's one thing I know about these children. No matter what they go through, they love mom and dad. It's crazy how a mother and father can throw that away in the trash like Jake and Rebecca. Sickening, right? So when Pearl was in the kitchen, she was approached by some women and they cut her up with the lid of a tuna can, and she had hot coffee and hot water thrown on her. She was jumped on, assaulted, right? Since that time, law enforcement, the COs have recognized that she's a threat to the safety and security and the integrity of the institution, meaning anywhere she goes, she's going to be rushed, or at least they're thinking that. So she's been placed in what is basically a segregated cell, not administrative segregation, because they can only keep you in the hole for an infraction for so long, but they've basically made room for her where she's segregated. She's probably housed around other women that have children that have, that they killed or things of that nature. Older ladies that can't do nothing to her. That's how she's living. That's how she's going to live for the rest of her life. But that doesn't mean she can't go to medical or somehow get took on if she catches a case in there for whatever, gets caught with contraband, she catches a new court case. There's ways that people can catch up to you eventually. Guess what, Rebecca? You might be Pearl Fernandez's cellie, just like Jake might go over there and sell it with Isaro. She is definitely going to be placed in the same situation if convicted, but she's not going to go immediately right to where Pearl is. So you got to earn that. You got to take your lickings and keep on ticking, right? With the case that's going on right now, because that was a 7-month-old baby or 8 or 9 months, we don't know. Rebecca doesn't either. Ask her, right? She's going to have to go to this prison on the main line with the women. And if they approach her and if they get off where they're mad at, then and only then, after so many times, will she be segregated. But with the women's facility, because they're so short, they don't have SMY yards. They don't have PC to put them. Okay? It's all case-to-case basis, depending upon their case factors and what happens to them. So guess what, Rebecca? Knock, knock. Who's there? A victim. And it's you this time, not the baby. Now, the similarities in this case are vicious. How a woman is controlled by a man. Men are very controlling in everything we do in life. You might not think you're controlling, but you do. We always want the remote control. We always want to control what's going on in our grill out there. We want to be the one on the grill master. You know what I'm saying? We want to control where our car's parked and who when we're going to wash it. We want to control that oil change. We're looking at Jiffy Lube like, oh, motherfucker, you better do it right, right? We're very controlling by nature. But when it comes to your woman, it's supposed to be teamwork to make the dream work. You're supposed to give a little. But there's men like Jake Haro and Isaro that were not giving. They were relentless in their control of women so much that they assaulted these women. They beat and battered these women into submission where they became soulless. They became, you know, when you hit a woman and you destroy a woman's nature, you become the object that she clings to. The same person that's hurting her is the person she believes can help her. It's kind of like a pimp situation. They tear them down to pick them back up. And they have these women believing that they're their sole purpose in life. Their whole life is to make you happy. That's what these guys do. Now, these guys have no game. Okay. So their game, which they think is game, is to beat these women. And if these women have children, there's children in the household and they don't want to deal with it, it becomes a point where they're hurting the children and they're allowed to, because the woman will turn the cheek because she doesn't want to lose this guy who she believes she needs in her life because he's controlling her, or she starts participating. Now, in this situation, both these mothers participated. You know, there's no concrete evidence to say Rebecca ever hit Emmanuel. There's no evidence to say that Jake ever hit Emmanuel, but it's starting to come out little by little. And we're starting to understand and believe abuse, even after the fact, is abuse, right? Saying the things she said, lying about her son, throwing him in the trash, buying a hacksaw, all these different things, and even sticking and being emotionless. This shows that this woman has psychopathic tendencies. There's something wrong with her. What this man did to her, or just the way she is, or the drugs she consumed over time, have turned this woman into a straight up maniac. Look, I'll say this. From what I've heard, I told you guys in on my other channel in a video that the baby was birthed in the living room or in that house. And the reason being so is that she was under, she had methamphetamine in her system, right? That's abuse right there. So baby Emmanuel was getting abused from the womb to the tomb, unfortunately, right? And Jake, being the type of slime ball he is, Rebecca was just a perfect accomplice, the perfect woman for him, a woman that would do anything for him. And she continues to make up excuses and lies when this guy is already admitting to the police officers. He's already admitting to this cellie, this decoy cellie. He's already admitting to everybody what she did, not what he did to her. We're talking about a woman who has black eyes on top of black eyes. She has black eyes giving black eyes piggyback rides. I told you, man, her nickname is Richueca, the black-eyed pea. And then, of course, you have Pearl over there, who was so hooked on this fucking maniac that she was willing to let him do anything to her child, to the point where the child could not survive anymore. So unfortunate and upsetting. These women will rot in hell. Their hell on earth will become prison. Pearl's already been down for a very long time. Will she get a look to get out? I highly doubt it, right? If laws change, she may. You know, Selena's fucking killer got a shot but didn't get out. Lyle and Eric got a shot but didn't get out. This situation, when it involves children, I believe you shouldn't get a shot. I believe you should get shot, but that's just, I'm not saying to do that. I'm just saying, right? For content purposes. These women were controlled, and this is what happens. Now, I understand beaten and battered women. I've seen them in my life. Okay, I've had family that were going through some shit where me and the homeboys had to pull up and deal with the boyfriend one time for his mind, right? A few different times. Let me explain the situation to you. And I've told this story in the past. When beaten and battered women are going through this, yes, you could tell they cry out for help. You could tell that they're scared. You could tell that they're soulless. You could see the change in their demeanor, the change in their attitude, the change in their physical, the way they look. Just like Rebecca, she does not look like what she used to look like. She went from Thor to Thortha, right? She used to look good in the hood. Now she looks bad with the dad, right? It's all bad. Very bad. She changed. She doesn't even look like the same individual. That's how bad this relationship and the drug usage tore her up. What a bad fucking mother, right? I feel sorry for all the rest of the kids that were around her. I wonder what they went through, what they had to see. Thank God they're still alive. Emmanuel doesn't get that chance. That poor baby never had a chance. Baby Gabriel never had a chance. These children right here, we need to never forget their names. These people, they can go to hell and rot in a prison cell or on death row for the rest of their lives because that's what they deserve. They deserve worse. But that, by the state of California, in law, that's all that you can give them. It's crazy. But back to Richueca, right? And back to the battered women. I've seen people that were like that, family members. And this one time, there was one of my baby's mom's sister, and she was going through with her old man, and they were arguing. And and I heard some fighting going on. And this is a grown man hitting on a woman, and they were going back and forth. She was throwing them bows too, but I went back there to break it up, and I grabbed him, snatched him up. I didn't want to hit him or nothing, but I grabbed him, and then he swung, and I had to give him the 1-2 extra crispy with a side order of what sauce, right? And immediately that chick raked my eyes, jumped on my back, called me all kinds of bitches and everything, and leave him alone. I threw her off me, and I said, you know what, I'm gone. She liked that. She was in love with that man that beat her. She needed him in her life. It was at that point I knew you got issues. I believe Rebecca and Pearl had them same issues. They were very controlled by these men to the point where they murdered their own children for these men. Now that right there is a flaw in thinking. And for the people, because I had someone get at me, man, why are you going in on her? You can tell she's beaten. I don't give a fuck. Forget her, man. What about Emmanuel? That's all I care about. I don't care about her. You know, hey, I don't like to see women get beat on and all that, but guess what? I don't also see women going to buy a fucking hacksaw and lie. Okay? That right there threw all that out the window. Oh, hey, I felt bad when Ola punched her, and then when I found out there was no Ola, I said, oh, wow, right? See you later, bitch. And that's it. Anyways, with that being said, let me know what you think, man. Is there similarities between Pearl and Rebecca? Eventually, they could end up in the same place on the same yard. The state of California is not very big when it comes to the system for women. So I believe that Rebecca, if convicted on this case, it's still too early to tell. But I believe her future is with Pearl Fernandez, and they could both tell stories on how they were both bad moms or monsters. With that being said, thumbs up or thumbs down. Heavy's going to be the head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive, struggle for what I truly believe in. That's the betterment of all people, and that's the bottom line. Why? Because Gun said so. For reals.